Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Curtis Round, and welcome to Final Take. Joining me on the debate desk today is Marty Kaufman and Ben Zutini. Gentlemen, how are you guys doing today?
I'm doing great. How about you, Curtis?
It's a fine evening. I mean, every Wednesday we all look forward to this show, so I'm pretty excited today.
I'm happy to be on here, ready to talk some sports and debate interesting topics around sports today.
Well, as we all know, our analysts from these past few weeks, Adam and Jocelyn, they're taking a day off this week. They'll be back next week to fire back at me on what's going on in the sports world. But let's kick things off with our rapid fire segment where we'll cover local sports around the Pointer community. Later we'll be talking news around the college football world, and we'll try to tackle all your Week 5 matchups and headlines around the NFL, and then talk about some upsets in the MLB postseason. But first, the women's UWSP women's soccer team went undefeated over the weekend, beating UW-Platteville 1-0 on Saturday for their first WEAC win, and beating Finlandia on Sunday in an absolute drubbing 11-0, with 8 different Pointers scoring goals. While the number 15th ranked women's volleyball team, on the other hand, went 3-0 over the weekend in the Carthage Invite, beating Augustana 3-0 and Carthage 3-2. Now let's talk about some football, guys. The UW-Stevens Point Pointers look to keep the undefeated streak alive as they faced off against their conference rivals, UW-River Falls. River Falls led 14-3 late in the second quarter after scoring 2 touchdowns. Between those touchdowns, the Pointers' defense forced a turnover deep in the Falcons' territory, but both times the Pointers turned the ball over on downs. The Pointers cut into the lead with 44 seconds left in the first half when Kyle Larson threw a 12-yard touchdown pass to Matt Szynski. Now entering the fourth quarter, the Pointers trailed 14-10, but it was about to change. With 8:03 remaining in the fourth, Kyle Larson connected with Alex Wallace for a 26-yard touchdown pass, and the Pointers went ahead 17-14. The Pointers went on to seal the victory with a Velasquez interception on the Pointers' own 1-yard line with their backs against the wall with 1 second left. Matt Szynski went over 100 yards receiving and had a touchdown for the 4th straight game. He caught 9 passes for 105 yards and a touchdown. The Pointers were just 2 of 6 in the red zone and 1 of 6 on 4th downs in the game. Larson finished 22 of 46 for 244 yards with a touchdown and an interception. His first of the year. DeJuan Wright rushed for 77 yards on 12 rushes. Well, I got a chance actually to talk to Matt Szynski tonight, and let's see what he had to say about the Pointers' success and his performance so far.
Making great decisions, game in and game out. He's putting us in the right position to make plays, and he's doing a great job of leading, as only a sophomore, coming in, transferring. We really couldn't ask for any more out of him right now. I'm surprised at all. We went into that game thinking we were going to win that game, and otherwise, we just won. We won the other 3 games, and you're trying to be confident, but you try to respect your opponent at the same time. But you play to win the game, at the end of the day, and we're happy to be 4-0, but we have a lot more goals to achieve yet. It's down to our offensive coordinator, Coach Blecko, having faith in me to do the right thing, and it comes down to Kyle. Putting me in position to make plays and, having faith in me and trusting in me, every play that he wants to throw the ball at me, and it all comes down to executing our game plan. It really comes down to executing. Last year we took Platteville to the wire, we took Whitewater to the wire, and, Oshkosh got away from us there. But, we're going to come and we're going to do our best to execute our game plan. And, like we did against North Central, we executed our game plan from start to finish, and we came out on top. And, it really doesn't change from that game in, game out. We're going to try to execute our game plan, and if we do that, we're confident we're going to win the game. Start off better than we have in the previous game, and for some reason we haven't found it right away. But it speaks to us as a team that we don't get down on ourselves. We go in at halftime, we make good adjustments, and we come out in the second half and we execute those adjustments to the best of our ability, and we've been able to come back on top. We don't want to be down at the half every game, but if it happens, we're going to come out in the second half and do our best to take that game. Different, I don't want to compare this team to last season. We're just going to go out here and do our best every single game, and whatever happens is going to happen.
Alrighty, gentlemen. What did you see from the offense in this game that impressed you?
I mean, Kyle Larson's continued to play the way he has all season, impressive numbers, throwing up the big yards, and him and Matt Szynski have formed a real connection on the field.
Matt Szynski right now is probably the top wide receiver in the WEAC conference right now. He at least has 100 yards and a touchdown every game, so he and Kyle Larson must have bonded very well over this past offseason with Larson being a transfer quarterback. And then not to mention, Szynski also leads the WEAC in receiving yards and catches per game.
Yeah, Szynski, he's really defined himself as his number one target. I mean, that's pretty obvious so far, and he's done what he needs to do. And this offense, you look at these last few years, it wasn't the high point of this team, and the defense is doing what they can right now, and they're doing well. I mean, I would say in that game versus North Central, they probably got the MVP award of that game, that big upset, but this offense is still tagging along too, and they're doing a lot better job under Kyle Larson this year than they have in years past with their past quarterback. Well, on the defensive side of the ball, the Pointers racked up 4 takeaways and recorded 5 sacks. Zach Valesky led the defense with 9 tackles and 2 picks, while Matt Gaffney added an interception. Aaron Carlin totaled 2 sacks, a forced fumble, and a fumble recovery. Gentlemen, has this defense surprised you of how well they're playing so far this season?
For me personally, yeah. I mean, they've struggled at times in the games in the past, but they've always found a way to stand up, force turnovers, and get them out on 4 downs.
You know, I don't think this is a surprise here, Curtis, because Jernell has been here for 3 years as head coach, but prior to that, he was a defensive coordinator here for a couple seasons, and now he's got an older defense. He's got his guys playing defense. He's got Valesky playing safety. He's got a great secondary to go along with Valesky with Longmire and Deion Jones. This secondary can just force turnovers. Then you got a good linebacking crew. You can develop a pass rush. You can force all these turnovers, which they are doing, and they lead the WEAC in turnovers.
Yeah, I'd have to go with Marty on this one. I don't see it much as a surprise. This guy, he's a defensive-minded coach. He wants good defenses, and we've had pieces in the past with those brothers on defense that just dominated these past few years, and we've always had kind of a strong defense. The offense is what they're struggling. I think that's more of a surprise than anything right now. Well, the Pointers host the Blue Golds of Eau Claire this Saturday at 1 p.m. at Gorky Park. Don't forget to tune in. Me and Adam Yurkovsky will be doing the play-by-play for that, and we assure you it's going to be a great time. Well, guys, let's talk about the Eau Claire game. They had to come from behind win this weekend, and River Falls isn't that great of a team. I mean, do you think the Pointers can go 5-0 right now?
Absolutely, without a doubt, yes. It's going to be a home game, big crowd, big atmosphere. Carl Larson's going to have a big game. And then all they have to do is get the running game started again. They have Christian Omonte, who's a good freshman running back. They just have to get him running and have him stay patient, and he'll do big things. I'm
going to have to agree with you on that, too. I think they do go 5-0. Eau Claire this season is winless. They've also been outscored 119-24. If you're not going to win games only having 24 points in about 4 games, and I think this offense is very well balanced. Larson's over 1,000 yards passing, has only thrown 1 touchdown to 8, has thrown 1 interception to 8 touchdowns. And then the backfield is pretty. You got 3 guys who can go in there and run the ball every game with Menzel, Almonte, and is it Wright? DeJuan Wright? Yeah. So I think they easily go to 5-0 this weekend.
We'll see. They always seem to struggle when they're supposed to dominate these teams. Last week we said they're going to blow out River Falls, and they almost lost this week. And if it wasn't for the defense saving them, throwing them the life jacket, the boat was sinking for the Pointers last week, and they couldn't get it together. And these comeback wins, when it comes down to them trying to make a playoff maybe or be atop of this conference, they're not going to have these come from behind wins. They need dominant wins, and that's starting to get a little scary, especially versus River Falls. And I know Eau Claire's a bad team. I'm not saying they're going to lose. I don't think it's going to be a blowout as many people think. I know this team, I know they're 4-0, but these come from behind wins are going to catch up sooner or later with them.
I know you're saying River Falls is kind of a bad team, but last year they did go winless, but they also they had about 5 losses. They were lost in the last minute. So River Falls, as usually, they have not Point. They have not made those comeback wins. But I think Point can make these comeback wins just by their defense is lights out in the second half every game.
Well, you bring up the point of a loss is a loss to me. I don't care how you lose it. We're going to bring, I don't like comparing NFL and D3 college football, but let's look at the Minnesota Vikings. The Minnesota Vikings last year lost a ton of games in close matchups. And you still think they're bad, don't you?
Well, no, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying there's always a common thing of bad teams find a way to lose. If you think of that.
Yeah, I think good teams find a way to win.
And Stevens Point has found a way to win every game this year.
I do agree with you guys there. I just think in the end when they start playing these high profile teams like Platteville and even Oshkosh, a lot of people were down with Oshkosh, so they're not as good as they were last year, but you still got Oshkosh and you got Whitewater. I just don't see them.
And they beat Whitewater 2 years ago and they lost them by 10 last year. So I think they can compete with Whitewater.
Alrighty, well, we're going to leave it there. Let's move on to some local sports. We'll be keeping you up to date on Spash Panthers and Pacelli Cardinals football. Let's take a look into the Panthers game.
Wisconsin Rapids taking on Stevens Point last Friday. It was homecoming and whiteout night for the Stevens Point football team and student section in full effect. On the second play of the game, Spash quarterback Victor Kazuski fakes out the cameraman and keeps the ball and heads all the way to the end zone. And no one will catch him here, and he jukes out one defender, and he's off to the races. Spash takes an early 7-0 lead. In the second quarter now, Spash captain's running back Ethan Clark makes a few Wisconsin Rapids players miss as he changes directions right there and takes it off for a 20-yard gain into Rapids territory. But on a cold night like tonight, it was difficult to throw the ball through the brisk wind. But Wisconsin Rapids quarterback Jason Welnerick was able to connect here with his wide receiver Thomas Olson for a 45-yard pass play. Panthers went on to win this one 35-0.
Alrighty, guys, the Panthers are now 3-4 on the season, and they destroyed Wisconsin Rapids 35-0 Friday night at Gorky Park to hang on to the Old River Jug. With this win, can they continue to keep the playoff hopes alive for another week?
I'd say yes. They do have a pretty easy schedule the rest of the way out. They do make the playoffs, but I don't know how far they'll go, though.
Yeah, I say if you have a 500 or a winning record, you have a good chance making the high school playoffs. So if they come out winning, win out this season, they can make a playoff run.
Yeah, and Adam, he's not here tonight, but I'm going to call him out on TV because Adam last week said that Wisconsin Rapids was going to dominate Spash, and he clearly wasn't watching high school football. Like I said last week, Spash was going to destroy them. Spash has just been playing tough competition so far. So, Adam, if you're sitting back at home or whatever you're doing right now, make sure you tune in tonight because that was quite embarrassing. Well, let's move on to the Pacelli Cardinals. They lost to Iola Scandinavia 46-0 on Friday night, dropping their season record to 1-6. They traveled to 1-4 Waiawega Fremont on Friday night. And gentlemen, it just has been a tough road for Pacelli right now. They haven't really found themselves on defense or offense. They're getting blown out of games. They're not scoring at all. And I think we'll just leave it right at that. It's just a bad season for them. And hopefully next year they can find some pieces. Just maybe some freshman kids coming into high school and hopefully boost up that team for next year. It hasn't been a good season. Well, we'll take a quick commercial break, but when we come back, we will talk college football. It's been a crazy one. Stay tuned.
Jackie Lang. I graduated from UW Stevens Point in 2013. I started off coming to general members meetings, showing up for the shows. From the first show that I was a part of, I just absolutely loved it. Now that I've graduated, I currently work at WFRV TV, which is Channel 5, the CBS affiliate in Green Bay. I also freelance for Lashbro Visual Communications. All of my experience, all of my knowledge came from SPTV, and I will forever be grateful to this organization for that.
The Love Doctor is in. Watch SPTV's new series featuring college dating advice, love confessions, and more. Michaela Hilgert is The Love Doctor. Watch the new series premiering this fall on SPTV Charter Channel 983.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. The Wisconsin Badgers struggle in a 20-14 loss to Northwestern Saturday afternoon in Evanston, Illinois. Melvin Gordon once again led the offense with a career-high 259 yards rushing and 1 touchdown, with Joel Stave and Tanner McAvoy combined for 4 interceptions. Once again, you saw a quarterback play be a struggle for Wisconsin. Which begs the question for us, who do you guys think should be starting at quarterback for next week and for weeks to follow?
If Gary Anderson doesn't even know, I don't even know if I know. They just have to play it out, maybe put in DJ Gillens towards the end and just wait for next year when Austin Confensis comes in. He's going to be a good freshman.
So he came out this week saying he's got 2 quarterbacks. And when a coach says you have 2 quarterbacks, you have no quarterbacks. Both of them have struggled this year at their own different times. Stavy might have thrown the worst interception I've seen all season, where he is literally an inch out of bounds, but he decides, I'm going to throw the ball, and the guy was still covered, and then the guy in front picked it off. But how bad is Bart Houston, guys? If Bart Houston can't even beat these guys out. When Bart Houston came in, Brett Bielema recruited him, and he was like a 3 or 4 star recruit. Like, he only sees time when it was like 62-17 against Bowling Green. I mean, Tanner McAvoy and Joel Stavy are both playing they're not playing good quarterback. And if I had to choose a guy right now to go with, I'd just stick with McAvoy. That's Anderson's guy. Stavi doesn't seem to be an Anderson guy. And if you talk about Gillens, I think they want to keep him as a red shirt. If you're at a point in the season where it's like, let's do it, put him in there. But I think they might hold off on Gillens. But I think you got to keep McAvoy in there.
Well, we talked about it in one of my coaching classes today, and I can't remember the term we use for it, but it's when an athlete kind of forgets how to play. And it sounds bizarre, but it does happen to players. And I think that's what happened with Stavi. They said Stavi in practice before the game last week, he was throwing 10-yard passes, which any college football quarterback would throw right to the guy. He was throwing them in the ground. This guy didn't get time in the offseason. They hand the reins over to McAvoy, and Stavi's kind of had a setback. And Stavi wasn't good in the first place, and then you give this guy a setback, it's just going to be a disaster. I think you go with McAvoy. It's Anderson's guy. Anderson has strong feelings from him. He benched Melvin Gordon for telling him to put in Stavi, so I don't even know why they even switched. You just stick with them. Wisconsin's pretty much done for the rest of the year. I think we've all figured that out. They got an easy side in their division, but it's a disaster.
See, I would
for
have
them.
to disagree. I don't think they are done. I think they can still, if they run the ball, they have a chance. But they got to have at least average quarterback play.
Well, they have a chance to make the Big
that's
Ten,
what I'm saying. They have a
Big Ten conference. I don't care what they do. They're not going to go anywhere besides that. And that's what I'm getting at. This season's done. They're going to go to the conference championship and probably get destroyed. That's my prediction. Well, let's move on to Gary Anderson, the guy at the helm here. The questions are, should we stick with Gary Anderson or we go somewhere else?
Based on last season's performance, it was a little bit of a disappointment with the way they came out against South Carolina in the bowl game. And this year it started off with a little bit of a disappointment against LSU. I think maybe he has 2 more years tops. I think Barry Alvarez is the type of guy who wants to win now and win often. And that's just not what they're doing right now.
There was the talk last season there was a rumor of him possibly going to Cleveland, but he signed another extension. And I think this is only his second year. He's still playing with some of Beal and those guys. You got to stay with him for a couple more seasons just to see what he can do with his own guys. That's what a new coach comes in. He's playing with other players that they recruited. You see parts of his offense now kind of becoming Gary Anderson's offense, not that power eye. There's more read option, more shotgun. You got to give him some time, I think, with his own players.
Well, we're going to leave it at that. The Badgers are at home on Saturday night against the Fighting Illini of Illinois. Kickoff is set for 11 a.m. All right. Well, once again, college football delivered with an exciting gauntlet of games and upsets. It started on Thursday night with Arizona upsetting Oregon 31-24. Mississippi State beating Texas A&M 48-31. Ole Miss beating Alabama 23-17. TCU beating Oklahoma 37-33. Auburn absolutely destroying LSU 41-7. Words of Cam Newton, War Eagle, baby. Notre Dame beating Stanford 17-14. Arizona State beating USC 38-34. Utah beating UCLA 30-28. And Michigan State beating Nebraska 27-22. All right, guys, there was a lot going on this weekend. What was the biggest upset?
I'd have to say Utah State beating UCLA. UCLA was a preseason favorite to go far in the 4-team college playoff, and they have Brent Hundley, an NFL-ready quarterback. They had big hopes at the beginning of the season, and nothing seems to be panning out for them. Brett Hundley's been playing injured a lot, and he just hasn't been playing up to how he played last year.
You talk about a team with an NFL-ready quarterback. The Oregon Ducks, man, they were ranked second in the nation. They're at home. It's prime time on a Thursday. They're facing an unranked Arizona team, and they lose. And they had a questionable penalty call on the sack celebration, but you're ranked second in the nation. You've been a favorite for a national championship every year, and it seems like these guys always lose at some point in the season, which didn't really come as a surprise that they lost, but to who they lost to at home was kind of a big shocker with that, especially with Marcus Mariota, who's a potential top 5 pick as a quarterback.
Okay, and let's go a little bit further. Who's in trouble at this point right now in college football?
I'd have to say Oregon because, as Marty said before, every year they're always a top pick to go far into a bowl game, but every year they always find a scrub team to lose to, and every year they supposedly have a college or NFL-ready quarterback, and they always wind up choking and not performing up to the best of their abilities.
I'll have to agree with that. Oregon is in trouble, especially and UCLA, because they both play each other this weekend. Basically, the loser's probably done. But also, any one-loss team right now is in trouble because you got to start winning out football games to make this playoff, I believe. That SEC West, You still got Alabama, LSU, Auburn, Ole Miss, and Mississippi State, and Texas A&M. That division winner will probably make the playoff, but I don't know about the other teams behind them, because that SEC West division is going to eat each other alive.
Well, looking ahead to this weekend, some notable matchups are number 13 Georgia at number 23 Missouri, number 2 Auburn at number 3 Mississippi State, number 9 TCU at number 5 Baylor, number 12 Oregon at number 18 UCLA, and number 3 Ole Miss at number 14 Texas A&M. Make sure you tune in for those matchups. It's going to be a good weekend. Well, we're going to take a quick commercial break, but when we come back, news around the NFL.
My name is Julia Flaherty. I'm the current promotions director at SPTV. My job allows for me to have a lot of personal creative direction, because that is the team environment that we instill here at SPTV. This past summer, I had the opportunity to write for hercampus.com as well as thedailyquirk.com. Personally, I feel that being involved with SPTV has really helped boost my confidence and my ability to network with other students. If student media is something that interests you, and even if you're not really sure what student media means, you should stop by our studios. We are looking forward to having you involved this year, and we cannot wait to make media with you.
If you like the sports broadcast brought to you by SPTV, make sure to find us on all of our social media outlets for all of your local Stevens Point athletics.
Let's turn the corner now to the NFL. Week 5 started on Thursday with the Packers absolutely destroying the Vikings 42-10 at Lambeau Field. Aaron Rodgers was 12 of 17 for 156 yards and 3 touchdowns. Eddie Lacy rushed for 105 yards on 13 rushes with 2 touchdowns. Jordy Nelson, Devontae Adams, and Randall Cobb each had a touchdown, along with Julius Peppers, who returned an interception for a touchdown and did his first Lambeau lead. Is this defense for real for the Packers right now, Ben?
I don't know. They played a pretty bad Minnesota Vikings team, which isn't saying much about their defense. You have to look at the rest of their schedule. They're playing Atlanta. They're playing New England. They have to play the Bears again. They have to play the Lions again. So I'd say just take it.
And don't forget, Ben, they have to play Carolina coming up in 2 weeks.
Carolina hasn't been doing that well either, with Cam Newton not exactly living up to expectations, but just take it by a week basis.
Is the defense for real? I'm going to say yes and no. The defense you saw at Chicago is probably that whole game, I think, is what their defense is going to be all year. They can't stop. I don't think this defense can stop the run, but this defense to succeed needs to force turnovers. This is going to be a bend, don't break defense. These teams are going to run up and down on them. They don't have their D-line is banged up. They're playing practice squad guys right now, basically, or rookies. Their linebacking core, their inside linebackers are hurt. I mean, you got but Lattimore's kind of coming along. A.J. Hawk has been consistent, but this defense needs to force turnovers. So you got the secondary of Sam Shields, Tremont Williams, Devon House. These guys are going to they're going to get interceptions, and Clay Matthews and Julius Peppers will keep pass rushing. These guys have developed a good pass rushing duo that I believe can force the interceptions and turnovers for this defense to succeed. But I don't think this defense is going to be a top 10, top 15 defense.
I'm kind of siding with you on this one, and I was shocked. I thought you'd say this defense was looking pretty good, but I'm kind of the same way. What I'm worried about for the Packers when they face a running quarterback, and we kind of haven't seen that really yet. Russell Wilson a little bit, but I kind of wanted to see Bridgewater go up against the Packers and see how they handle him. We know they have Achilles heel for Colin Kaepernick. The guy looks like a Hall of Famer when he plays the Packers because they don't know how to stop him. And Cam Newton, he might be 100% coming in that game for them. Maybe that will be their test of a running quarterback a little bit there. But like you said, I think this team, they need to create turnovers, and I think they will. I just don't know how far that will take them. This offense is studly, and that's one word. That's just one word. We can stop right there because this offense has been unbelievable so far. Well, what do you guys think of the Packers' performance and overall so far, and how far can this take them?
The offense hasn't surprised me at all. I mean, with Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback, you're obviously going to do big things on offense in the NFL. The defense has me a little worried at times with how they played against the Bears and Matt Forte. Them not being able to stop the run could hurt them later in the season and in the playoffs, but they're living up to expectations.
Well, Ben, let me ask you this, because it seems like every year they can't stop the run. There's nothing really different right now about this Packer defense. They never stopped the run. I mean, they're always going to give up that 100-yard rusher. So every year it's kind of the same old thing. I mean, and we give Ted Thompson all this credit. I'm sorry, I'm going to bash this guy a little bit. He hasn't done anything for this defense. He might have got Ha-Ha, who's slowly starting to develop, but some of these guys he's getting for the defensive line is atrocious. It really is.
I mean, he did have that big signing of Julius Peppers, which surprised me.
Big signing. The guy is, what, 35 years old?
It was,
I mean,
it was
that's not
better
a
than
big
what they
signing
had
to me.
before.
I think the Nick Perry pick, now looking back, it's probably a questionable pick because he's more of a DN than an outside linebacker. But I think Dayton Jones has been coming along nicely at the DN position. He's making a
DN, we need a guy who can stop the run.
Well,
That's not the question
well, I
right
mean,
now.
he-
The question,
he
the
signed-
question is, we need a run-stopping defense. We don't have one.
Well, the
And
problem-
we haven't had one the past 3 years. And what is he doing?
Their nose
what is Ted Thompson doing to supply for this run defense? He hasn't the last 3 or 4 years. You're telling me this guy's he's a good GM.
He's re-signed his nose tackle, B.J. Raji, who's playing at a DN, a position he's more not suited for in the 3-4. Raji was at nose tackle coming along in the preseason until he fell injury. And then you have your starting D tackle in week 1 against Seattle as the Troy Guion, who probably had 3 practices in training camp and preseason, and he's going in week 1 against the Seattle running game. So I think right now the problem is they have not gotten a true nose tackle. They've kind of just drafted the best player available and like a defensive player, but they don't sometimes maybe fit in the scheme, which is now why they're kind of moving into a 4-3 a little bit. They're kind of mix and matching with a 3-4 and a 4-3. But I think also too with the run defense, they kind of had the unlucky thing to happen where I think they were going after an inside linebacker like Mosley and Shazier, and those guys were taken off the board before them. I think their run defense might be a little bit better with an athletic linebacker like Shazier or Mosley in the middle of that defense.
Well, when you look at it, Ted Thompson won't even look anyway at the free agency, so that's another reason why. Anyway, we're going to go on. The Packers are now 3-2 on the season. They travel to Miami on Sunday to take on the Dolphins. Some other games in Week 5, including the Panthers beating the Bears 31-24. The Broncos led by Peyton Manning, who's having another MVP season, beating the Cardinals 41-20. And Tom Brady leading the Patriots over the Bengals 43-17 on Sunday. As we said before, the Packers will take on the Dolphins. We're going to just fly by this. I think it's going to be a lopsided victory myself, and I think we all agree on this across the board that the Packers will win this one. So we'll move on there. What do you guys think for these Week 6 matchups? There's a few big games going on. There's a 3-2 Patriots taking on the 3-2 Bills in the AFC. And then you also have, I want to say it's the Giants and Eagles are playing in that game. And then you also have, let me just look through my notes here. You have some teams. I think it was the Cowboys. Cowboys are 3-1.
Cowboys are 4-1. They play at Seattle this weekend.
Thank you. That game. That's going to be a big game. What are you guys looking forward to this weekend?
I think the Cowboys are going to absolutely get destroyed by the Seahawks. Tony Romo's going to go back to his old self, throwing interceptions, not playing smart defense. And I think the Seahawks, this is going to be the game where their defense shows up and shows what they did last year with a just all-out performance.
I'm not sure if Romo and the Cowboys will go back to their ways that they usually do because it's not December yet. But I think this weekend is a big weekend for that NFC East division. The Cowboys are 4-1. They're going up against the defending Super Bowl champions at home. Are they for real? This is to be the biggest test for the Cowboys yet. And then you got the Giants who are on a 3-game winning streak. I think they go to Philadelphia. The Eagles basically have been scoring on defense and secondary or special teams. So if Eli Manning can come along, let's see, because it's possible that 3 teams could be at 4-2 right now in the NFC East and all be tied at first.
Well, that's all the time we have tonight. We thank everyone for tuning in with us today. I'd like to thank Marty Kaufman and Ben Zuttini for joining me on the debate desk with their insightful opinions. And a big thank you to our technical staff and all their hard work to make this possible, because without them, we wouldn't be here. Well, be sure to check us out on Facebook at SPTV UWSP Television, or follow us on Twitter at SPTV_UWSP. Also visit UWSP homepage to locate all your Pointer athletic information. We'd like to announce that we'll be broadcasting the game this Saturday online, and it'll be streaming online at portal.stretchinginternet.com/UWSP. So make sure you tune in this Saturday at 1 p.m. Me and Adam will be doing the game. That's when the Pointers are going to be taking on UW-Eau Claire. And just remember, fellow Pointers, here at Final Take, anything Pointers, anything sports.